Hello everyone, and welcome back to our channel. Today is a truly fantastic day to sit down, grab a cup of coffee, and unpack the absolute cinematic brilliance that has been unfolding on our screens this week. The writers are firing on all cylinders right now, and I cannot wait to dive into the deep end of the pool with you all. Let's get right into it. I feel so incredibly electrified by the sheer cinematic audacity of that horrific crash scene on Route 91, because to me, it finally proved that the writers are entirely unafraid to push these characters to their absolute physical and emotional limits. When I watched that wrecked car sitting in the branches beneath the railing, engulfed in the glowing, terrifying orange flames, my jaw actually dropped. I think the director's choice to show the immediate aftermath, the smoke billowing into the night sky, the eerie silence broken only by the crackle of the fire, was nothing short of a masterpiece. It made me feel a visceral sense of dread that daytime television rarely manages to achieve with such terrifying authenticity. The way I see it, the moments leading up to that crash were a masterclass in tragic irony, and I absolutely loved how it played out. I know a lot of people in the fandom are complaining about the fact that Jordan Ashford and Curtis Ashford were kissing while driving. I have seen the forums lighting up with people saying that their distracted driving makes them entirely responsible for the wreck. But I genuinely think we're missing the point if we just write this off as a foolish mistake on their part. I believe the writers intentionally had them canoodling like a couple of high school sweethearts on their way to the drive-in to heighten the sheer tragedy of what was about to happen. I loved the way the soft, romantic lighting inside the car completely contrasted with the harsh, blinding glare of the oncoming headlights. That split-second transition from pure, unadulterated love to absolute life-shattering terror was brilliant because it made me feel the fragility of their happiness. I feel like this is the best they've written Curtis in years, primarily because of the raw, unfiltered desperation we saw in the aftermath. When Curtis and Valentine Cassadine were pulling a completely unresponsive Jordan from that mangled wreckage just seconds before it exploded, my heart was in my throat. I think the visual of Valentine and Curtis functioning like a two-man walker to drag Jordan to safety was one of the most powerful images of the year. Valentine is a fugitive, risking his own freedom to save a woman who represents the very law enforcement trying to cage him, and Curtis is running on pure, adrenaline-fueled terror. When Curtis arrived at General Hospital with the EMTs and shouted, "We need a doctor!" the absolute agony cracking his voice gave me chills. I feel so deeply for him right now because he is going to carry the heavy, suffocating guilt of knowing he took her eyes off the road. But here is where my personal reading of the text diverges from the obvious surface-level narrative. I firmly believe that this was not just a tragic accident born of distracted driving, and I think the writers have been meticulously laying the groundwork to prove that Jen Sidwell orchestrated this entire nightmare. I feel so vindicated in this theory when I look back at the terrifying confrontation between Sidwell and Jordan right before the crash. I think the way the lighting changed in that scene, casting deep, ominous shadows across Sidwell's face as he read her the riot act, was a deliberate visual cue that Jordan had just crossed a fatal line. I feel like Jen Sidwell is the most compelling, terrifyingly calm villain we have had in Port Charles in a decade. When Jens got in Jordan's face and explicitly threatened that he would take all she has if she didn't come through for him, I felt a genuine shiver run down my spine. The way I interpret it, Jens is a man entirely consumed by a toxic, blinding grief over the murder of his son, Marco Rios. He is not in his right mind, but his madness is cold, calculating, and ruthlessly precise. He demanded that Jordan find proof that Sonny Corinthos killed Marco. We know Sonny is innocent for once, but Jens refuses to take no for an answer. I think Jordan's fatal mistake was trying to argue with him, trying to gently suggest that Sonny might not be the culprit. In my opinion, the moment she pushed back, Jen's overactive, vengeful brain decided that her usefulness had expired. Anticipating the criticisms here, I know some viewers feel that having Sidwell arrange a car crash is too convoluted, especially when Jordan was clearly distracted by Curtis. But I actually think this dual-layered storytelling is exactly what makes the current plot so genius. I believe Sidwell absolutely sent someone to run Jordan off the road. Why? Because we have a terrifying, blood-chilling precedent for Jen Sidwell's vehicular capers. I am of course talking about the horrifying moment we learned he killed his own employee, Henry Dalton, and planted Dalton's corpse in Mayor Laura Collins' trunk. I feel like we need to deeply analyze that specific plot point to understand the absolute monster we are dealing with. Jens didn't just kill Dalton, he executed a strategic, flawlessly timed operation. He planted the body, took incriminating photographs, and explicitly arranged for Laura's car to break down in the exact location he wanted. That level of precision proves to me that Jens is a master of using vehicles as weapons of blackmail and destruction. He now has Laura completely under his blackmailing thumb. The way I see it, a man capable of pulling off that kind of intricate psychological torture would absolutely not hesitate to arrange a tragic accident for an undercover operative who is no longer serving his vengeful agenda. I think the writers are brilliantly reminding us that Jens is not like you and me, he is a monster of the highest order. I feel like the best evidence of his true nature isn't even the murders, it's the psychological games. This is the man who kept Lucky Spencer alive for the sole, twisted purpose of beating him at poker. I think that specific character detail is vital because it shows that Jens views human lives as nothing more than chips on a casino table. When he threatened to take everything away from Jordan, I believe he meant it literally. He didn't just want to fire her, he wanted to extinguish her life to send a message to anyone else who might dare to defy him. I am absolutely in love with how the show is playing it coy with this whodunit aspect of the crash. I know a lot of people are saying this storyline is dragging and that having multiple people on Route 91 at the same time is a tired soap opera trope. But I actually think the slow burn and the crowded road are exactly what's needed because I feel like it creates a suffocating atmosphere of paranoia. We have Danny Morgan and Charlotte Cassadine taking a whirlwind joyride, recklessly speeding through the night. We have Brooke Lynn Quartermain, who had a glass or two of wine before getting behind the wheel to see Gio Palmieri perform at Charlie's Pub. The narrative is intentionally pushing us to look at Brooke Lynn's empty wine glass and Danny's reckless youth, but in my opinion, these are brilliant, meticulously crafted red herrings. I feel so frustrated in the best possible way by how the narrative is framing Brooke Lynn as the prime suspect. I think it is a tragedy that she is being set up as the fall guy, especially right after she and Harrison Chase were conditionally approved to foster baby Phoebe. I loved the subtle acting choices during Brooke Lynn's scenes, the way her eyes darted around, the sheer panic radiating from her when she realized she might have caused the wreck. But the way I interpret it, Brooke Lynn and the teenagers were just pawns on the chessboard that Jen Sidwell had already set up. I believe the oncoming car that forced Jordan to swerve wasn't Brooke Lynn, and it wasn't Charlotte, it was a hitman hired by Sidwell. I feel like the absolute crowning moment of this entire narrative thread happened at General Hospital when Laura Collins arrived to support Curtis. I love the way Laura's entire demeanor shifted from a comforting friend to a seasoned, razor-sharp detective. When Laura looked at Curtis and asked if it was possible the car wreck was not an accident, I actually cheered at my screen. I think the writer's choice to have Laura be the one to plant this seed of doubt was magnificent. Laura knows exactly what Jen Sidwell is capable of. She has literally driven around with the rotting proof of his ruthlessness in her trunk. She knows the potential dangers associated with Jordan's undercover job as Sidwell's right-hand woman. I feel so entirely captivated by the look that crossed Curtis' face when Laura asked that question. It was as if a massive, heavy veil was lifted from his eyes. I think this is the exact moment the storyline shifts from a tragic medical drama into a high-stakes, breathless thriller. Curtis is going to realize that his kiss wasn't the only thing that caused the crash, that someone was out there on that dark road with a vile, evil agenda hunting the woman he loves. I believe this realization is going to turn Curtis into a relentless force of nature, and I cannot wait to see him go toe-to-toe with Sidwell. I genuinely think we are witnessing some of the most layered, emotionally resonant storytelling the show has produced in a very long time. Every single character motivation feels earned. Jen's blinding grief over Marco pushes him to commit atrocities. Jordan's dedication to her undercover work blinds her to the immediate danger. Curtis' overwhelming love for Jordan makes him vulnerable to the crushing guilt of the accident. Even Valentine risking his life to pull Jordan from the flames speaks volumes about his complex, morally gray code of honor. I feel so passionately about defending this specific storyline because it respects the history of the characters while pushing them into terrifying new territory. I love that the show is not making the cause of Jordan's crash cut and dry. I think the ambiguity is the entire point. Is it Jen's? Is it a tragic mistake by Brooke Lynn? Is it the reckless teenagers? The way I see it, the genius lies in the fact that all of these elements collided on Route 91 at the exact same time, creating a perfect storm of tragedy. But at the center of that storm is Jens Sidwell, a man who manipulates chaos to his own advantage. I firmly believe that as Jordan fights for her life in that hospital bed, completely unresponsive and battling a potential traumatic brain injury, the true scope of Sidwell's evil is going to come to light. I think Loris' alliance proposal, which she is planning to make to shift the power balance in Port Charles, is going to be the direct result of this crash. She knows Jens is a monster, and she knows he tried to take Jordan out. I feel so incredibly invested in seeing Laura, Curtis, Sonny, and even Valentine eventually unite to tear Sidwell's empire to the ground. To me, this is what daytime television is all about. It's about the slow realization of a hidden threat. It's about the visual poetry of a burning car in the dead of night. It's about the heartbreaking reality of a loved one crying out for a doctor in a sterile hospital hallway. I think the writers have crafted a perfect puzzle, and watching the pieces fall into place, watching Jens Sidwell's terrifyingly calm exterior hide the vicious, murderous heart of a grieving father is an absolute joy. I feel like we are in for an incredibly bumpy, emotionally devastating ride, and I am here for every single second of it.